Hello, and welcome to Nuts About Baseball, a podcast that will entertain you with discussions involving everything baseball. I'm your host, Joe Grimme, and I appreciate you joining me. Sit back, relax, and enjoy as I share my passion for the sport we call America's pastime. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Nuts About Baseball. I am your host, Joe Grimme. Today, I am joined by Greg Kuffner, who is a part-time contributor to Sports Illustrated and follows the Reds even more than I do. So, Greg, thanks for joining me. I appreciate you being a guest on my podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here.
Well, you absolutely are in the know with regard to the Cincinnati Reds and I'm sure baseball overall, but let's talk a little bit about where you came from. Where'd you grow up, Greg?
Yeah, I grew up about 2 hours north of Cincinnati in a little town called St. Mary's, Ohio. I think the population's about 8 to 9,000 people. So grew up there and then went to the University of Cincinnati for college.
Okay. I don't want to assume anything, but I guess you grew up being a Reds fan?
I did. Yeah, I've been a diehard Reds fan since I was like a little kid. In fact, my parents used to have a garage radio that they would have outside, and I would play, like pretend baseball out there, and I'd have the Reds on the radio whenever they were playing out
Yeah.
there. So literally ever since I was a little kid, I'd be locked into the Reds.
Yeah, that's same with me. I'm sure we have a lot in common. Who were some of your players growing up?
I loved Adam Dunn. Obviously, Ken Griffey Jr. was awesome when he was traded. I wish he would have stayed healthy.
Yeah.
I was a huge Jay Bruce fan when he got called up. Brandon Phillips obviously was electric. I'd
Yeah.
say those are probably some of my favorite. And then obviously Ellie De La Cruz is electric to watch.
Yeah. He's special. Now you're younger than I am. My mainstay growing up was ED number 44, Eric Davis.
Nice. Yeah, I
Yeah.
wish I every time people were like, "Oh, you guys had the big red machine," I was like, "Well, I didn't get to witness that." So I'm jealous of everybody that did.
So when you went to the University of Cincinnati, you worked in the sports information department.
That's correct. Yeah, so I majored in sports administration, and I have a brother that's 2 years older than me, and he did the same. He went to Bowling Green. He basically told me in sports, it's about who you know, not as much what you know. So he was like, everyone wants to work in sports, so like you got to network. So I just kind of reached out to um, the people in the sports information department and said, "Hey, I'd love to be, help out as a student worker." And they said, "Sure, we'd love to have you." And I did that for I think 2 years, I think. And the first year I did it all for free, and then the second year they were like, "Hey, we can actually pay you a little bit for this," which was awesome because I just did it all for free the first year. So yeah, that's kind of how that went.
When did you decide that you knew you wanted to get into this type of business?
I guess like sports as a whole, I kind of always thought that was the route just because I've always loved sports. I played baseball, basketball, golf growing up. I played soccer up until high school. So like I always played sports. Sports were always a huge part of my life. I'm a huge sports fan. So I guess especially when, like I said, my older brother went into it, I was like, I think that makes sense for me to go into that field. And then I've kind of always enjoyed it since.
Yeah. Well, you moved on, and I know you have a full-time job, but you write for Sports Illustrated. How did you land that position?
Yeah, so I have a pretty popular Twitter account called it's Reds Daily 4, and I literally made that because I used to have my own personal Twitter account, and I would just like tweet Red stuff to like my friends basically who followed me on Twitter, and then I'm like, these people don't care about these people don't care about my Reds takes. So I decided, I think it was like here I'm looking at it now, June 2021 is when I created this account.
Okay.
But I was like, I'll just follow other Reds fans and they can follow me, whatever. And then it kind of blew up. And I have like 18,000 followers on there now almost. And
Wow.
so that's how James Rapine is kind of my boss. He's the owner of Cincinnati Reds Talk.com, which is like co-owned by Sports Illustrated. He just reached out to me, I think 2 summers ago, and was like, "Hey, would you have any interest in writing for Sports Illustrated?" And honestly, the first thing that came to my mind was like, I never really enjoyed writing when I was in school and stuff. I was like, I think I committed to like um, 2 or 3 articles a week to him, and then like before you know it, I was just ripping them off whenever I could. Uh, but it's different. I guess when I thought of writing, like I think of like you're writing like 1,000, paragraph essays, which is just not the case. A lot of times it's like quick hitters or but some quotes with your opinion on it real quick. They're not like really long things, but that's kind of how that came about.
Okay. You've got your own podcast, and what's that called?
Yeah, it is Cincinnati Reds Daily, and then it's called the Queen City podcast as well. I think is what I called it, like the podcast episodes. But I think Cincinnati Reds Daily is what you can search to find it on YouTube and on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that kind of fun stuff.
Okay. And that just has all kinds of stuff, Reds, and various baseball things, or just Reds?
It's just Reds. So I usually try to anytime there's something relevant, I try to get on there. Like actually, I just did one a little bit ago when the Reds signed Nathaniel Lowe today to a minor
Yep.
league deal. So anything like that, I try to jump on there and do it. They're usually pretty short, like 10 to 20 minute episodes. I try not to get on there and just ramble about nonsense. It's just me, so it's hard to. I can't just talk for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll go live on YouTube and people will ask questions. It's easier to go longer when I do something like that. But yeah, that's kind of how I do it now. Kind of just whenever stuff comes up or I have enough to kind of talk about. Obviously, with spring training coming, I know Charlie Goldsmith and Mark Shelton and them have been out there and they're all sorts of content. So it's easier. It's been nice having a bunch of stuff to talk about recently. The off season can be tough at times.
Well, that's good background on you. And I'd say let's get into the Reds. I got to be honest, I watch almost every game each season and follow them very closely and have my own opinion, obviously. And I was not too optimistic about the season this year until they signed Gino Suarez. I'm really excited to see him back. I'm not saying he's going to take us to the World Series, but he's that bat that we needed in the lineup, I think, to protect some others. What are your thoughts about him being back in Cincinnati?
Yeah, I'm pumped. I've been saying all off season that the biggest need was a power bat. Like it drove me crazy last year with all the quotes that would come out with Valleca and Nick Kroll about like line drives, or situational hitting. Like I completely understand like that stuff's important, but also like it was almost like they were so anti home run. I was like, this team needs power. Like
Yeah.
how many games they lost 1-0 or 2-1? Like if it's a one run ball game, like one swing over the fences can change the game. Pitchers, I just say one thing I always say is like pitchers are so good nowadays. It's very hard. It's so hard to string together 4 to 5 hits in a row, which is why power is so much more important. Like a double or a triple or a home run is so much more important than a single. And I think Gino provides that. Like he's not a big on base percentage guy. Like I think his on base percentage was only like 298 or something last year, but he hit 49 home runs,
Right.
which can be the difference in winning ball games for the team. So I think not only that, but he also provides like Ellie, some protection in the lineup.
Yep.
Where last year it was like pitchers, it was like they were just pitching around him.
Yep.
And then I think that affects his confidence. And obviously he was playing a little bit hurt in the second half, but I just think it helps the lineup as a whole so much.
Yeah. And these days, I think 15 million is a bargain for Suarez.
Oh yeah, if you would have told me, if someone would have said at the beginning of the offseason, like, hey, the Reds can sign Gino for 1 year, $15 million, I probably would have called you crazy. I'm
Yeah.
kind of surprised. Like, and in fact, if I'm being honest, like I said at the beginning of the offseason, I was like, I do worry about how Gino ages. He wasn't great in the second half last year, but that's also like Seattle's a very pitcher friendly
True.
park.
Yep.
I was more worried about like signing him to like a 3 or 4 year deal, how it would look at the end of it. The fact that you can get him on 1 year, like even if he struggles this year, it's one deal and you wash your hands. It's just money. So I was shocked. I can't believe a guy that hit 49 home runs, like nobody gave him multiple years. And I think he did maybe say there were maybe a couple multi-year deals on the table, and it seemed like he wanted to be with the Reds, which was cool. But yeah, if you told me back in September that we'd be able to sign Suarez for 1 year, 15 million, I would have said probably you're crazy.
No, I agree with you. I assume you agree that he's probably going to be playing mostly a designated hitter for us.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. He's not a very good defender these days. I think every once in a while when you want to get guys days off, you can plug him maybe at third. I think they're going to try him some at first base, but
Yeah.
I would assume he probably is DHing most of the time, which will be a little interesting to see how he does because I don't think he's done it a ton in the past. I mean, you always hear guys talk about some guys love it, some guys don't like it as much, so it'll be interesting to see how he does in that role.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely helps our lineup. I mean, especially with Great American supposedly being a hitter's ballpark. We're not knocking too many home runs over the wall, but hopefully he'll add to that this year. So, a guy I really like and someone who really frustrated me last year was Matt McLean. I mean, it seems like second base is his position to lose. They certainly gave him every single opportunity last year, never really gave him much time off or sent him down to AAA. What are your thoughts on him? I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. He had an awful season last year, and I'm just wondering if he did anything in the offseason that you might have heard of that would hopefully give him a better impact on the team this year.
Yeah, I think he's a huge part of the team. It wouldn't surprise me if how Matt McClain does is kind of how the Reds offense goes, because I think if he can provide what he provided his rookie year or even
Yeah.
close to that,
Right.
um, that could be a really good lineup because he's probably going to be hitting, I don't know, sixth, seventh, eighth. He was hitting eighth a lot of last year
Hmm.
at the end of last year, but when Tito finally dropped him down from the two hole. But I just read an article this morning that kind of talked about, he said, I think it was from Charlie Goldsmith, but he was talking about how he seemed to play his best last year when he was like, let me just be an athlete and let me go compete. And he said whenever he was struggling, he was kind of in his head about mechanics and swing thoughts and all that kind of stuff, which I thought was interesting. But I'm really hoping that McLean, everyone always says it's hard to come back from big shoulder surgery like that.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that maybe that had a big impact on it. And then when you struggle on top of that, it's hard to play with bad confidence. I think he just his confidence wavered, and I'm hoping the surgery, you know, being a year removed from that, he can be, better than last year. And I think if he's just even just average or above average, I think it helps a ton. But if he can get anything close to what it is his rookie year, would be huge. I don't. I wouldn't say I'm low on him. I think there's a chance we could. I think he's got a ton of potential,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I was pretty surprised with how bad he was last year. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see. He's probably one of the guys I'm most excited to watch during spring training, if we're being honest.
Injury absolutely had to set him back, but I was surprised that they just continued to put him in the lineup. And for the longest time, like you said, in the two hole, finally they dropped him down. And maybe without the pressure of being up in the top of the lineup, down at 6 or 7, whatever it might be, he'll be able to produce and come back to the form that he was the year before. Ellie De La Cruz, clearly our shortstop. I don't understand what happened last year. I understand. Well, I do know that they said, "Oh, he was playing with an injury second half of the season," but I knew it was horrible. But midway through the season, 81 games, he had 18 home runs. In the second half of the season, he only had 4. He finished with 22 home runs. Did you see anything in his swing that really made a difference in your mind as to why the power dropped off, or do you think it was potentially that leg injury that he was nursing?
I do think the leg injury had a big thing to do with it. But he also went to a toe tap
Yeah.
that I think it just took away a lot of his power. I know people don't always love the big leg kick, but to
Hmm.
me, that's where he generated a lot of his power, and he just looked more fluid with the leg kick. And he went back. I think they said last year, in the last 2 weeks of the season, he went back to the big leg kick, and he hit 3 home runs and had a 944 OPS during that stretch. So it might be something that he just feels more comfortable with. And earlier this week, I think they reported that said he's going back to the leg kick. So that is a swing change that it feels like he's more comfortable with it. And I think with a young kid like that, you just have to let him go with kind of what they're more comfortable with. Because like McLean said, once you start getting in your pitchers are so good. If you're out there thinking about your swing, it's going to be no good. And I think it's that with, like you said, the quad injury clearly affected him. He wasn't stealing bases near as much. So I think it's probably a combination of factors. Again, we were just talked about he had no protection in the lineup essentially. The offense was just so bad.
Yeah, true.
So I think pitchers could pitch around him, and then you start chasing things because you're frustrated. And I'm sure when he was in that home run drought, he's up there trying to hit home runs because he's like, where did my power go? So I'm guessing it. I would just say it was probably all the factors coming together to just. It was just a bad second half, and I truly think he's going to come out this year, and his season will be much more like the first half of last year than the second half.
Yeah, and I don't need him to hit 50 home runs. I mean, he's not Kyle Schwarber, but I would like to see him return to potentially 30, 35, knocking in 100, 110. And maybe, like you said, with the combination of being healthy and some protection around him, it takes less pressure off and he can just be a ball player.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I think this lineup has the potential to give him a lot more protection, especially if someone like Sal Stewart can hit. If Gino hits good behind him, I think Spencer Steer was actually pretty decent last year after whatever, like the first month and a half
Right.
when he was playing through that injury. He was horrible in that stretch. But if you
Yeah.
take those numbers out, like he was actually had a pretty solid year. So I think I think if Ellie can get back to what he was in the first half of last year, like that just elevates this offense so much. I kind of think like as Ellie goes, it feels like that's how the Reds go.
Yeah.
He's just such a huge part of the team.
You know, and speaking of Steer and Stewart, I didn't love Spencer Steer at first base, but man, he played a great defensive first base, and it surprised me. I want some guy over there 6'5" and can stretch and this, that, and the other, and he's not that guy. But man, he gets to a lot of balls and he makes a lot of scoops. So I wasn't disappointed with him there. But I'd like to see South Stewart get a chance. Do you think that position's up for grabs?
Yeah, it feels like with the Geno signing, it feels like Stewart's going to play a lot of first base, and Spencer Steer's kind of going to play all over and go back to playing in some outfield, which is kind of funny because he was so good at first base. But also, when you think of first base, you think you should have someone at first base should be like one of the better hitters on your team. You would think,
Yeah.
and he may be that, but like I don't think he hits quite good enough to be like everyday first baseman. But you're
No.
right, he was great in the field at first base. I think he was a Gold Glove finalist.
Hmm.
But I think they said like he's going to go back to kind of the utility role, play some left field, play some first base every once in a while. I think they even said like maybe back up when Ellie gets a day off and Matt McClain has to go over to short. Like maybe he'll even play some second base, which is interesting. I think a couple years back when he was kind of playing all over the place, he said second base was his like favorite or best position.
Yeah.
But we never really see him play there. But it's interesting because it goes back to like the team wants. They've always said they want to be good at defense, but if you're putting Spencer Steer in left field, that's he's kind of a liability out there a little bit. I
Yeah.
do think it makes if you have Geno DHing Steer in left field and Sal Stewart at first base, I think that's one of your best offensive lineups. So it's kind of like you just got to choose if you want to be offensive driven or defensive driven that particular day, I guess.
I like that combination you just said. That seems like a nice threesome in those positions. At third base, Cabrian Hayes. I wasn't thrilled when they got him because he has no bat. Sorry, Cabrian, but he's got a heck of a glove and showed that with his gold glove he won last year. And quite frankly, some of the plays he made at certain times during games, we lose those games if he doesn't make those plays.
Yeah, 100%. I was kind of the same way. It was an interesting trade. I think the reason I was kind of with you, like I think I talked myself into it, but like also like for a team that struggled so much offensively to go out and get a guy that can't hit was kind of a bizarre move.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting this year. I mean, I do think I'm hoping sometimes you see guys with a change of scenery and just kind of it just kind of helps them. They get a new hitting coach, get a new set of eyes on them, and maybe they can change things. I think uh, GABP's a lot easier to hit than Pittsburgh. So hopefully some things like that maybe just help them. Yeah, it's hard to just run out a guy that isn't good offensively, which I think is why it was important to go get a guy like Geno to where there's less holes in the lineup, and why it's important like guys like McClain to hit, because last year when you had McClain hitting ninth and Hayes hitting eighth, and when Jose Trevino was playing, like that's a 7-8-9 that is basically like you
Three
got
outs.
no chance. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, and I agree with you. Maybe a fresh start in Cincinnati, spring training, good year, instead of coming over mid-season. Maybe that is something that's going to make the difference for Hayes. I'd like to think so, and I would think he's coming in with a positive attitude. I think the attitude overall with this team should be positive. I think they look good on paper. This episode is brought to you by Maria, Whalen, and Bravenly. If you're training hard, working long hours, or just trying to stay sharp day in and day out, Bravenly is something that's becoming a part of the daily routine for a lot of people. Bravenly is an all-natural, holistic, plant-based wellness company designed to support men and women of all ages. Whether you're an athlete, weekend warrior, or just trying to feel and perform better. Their supplements are made with clean ingredients and no artificial colors, dyes, or flavorings, just thoughtfully sourced formulas that support real energy, recovery, focus, digestion, and overall balance. Bravenly isn't about quick fixes or stimulants. It's about fueling your body the right way so you can train harder, recover smarter, and show up stronger. If you're looking for a clean, effective way to support your body, check out Maria's website at mariawhalenglowup.bravenlyglobal.com. Let's move to the outfield. TJ Friedel. So I would say he's a lock in center field, but I just read your article about some grumblings about Noelve Marte getting maybe a few reps in center field. What's up with that?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, but they started him in one game last year out there, which was pretty random.
Yeah.
And I think he misplayed a ball, like his only start out there, and then they moved him over there in like a defensive replacement. Basically, from what I gathered from Francona's comments, is like Friedel's the center fielder, so that it's not like they're gonna all of a sudden move Marte to center field. I don't I don't think he's going to get a lot of reps there in the season.
Mm-hmm.
I do think maybe, especially now that they got Dane Myers, I think Myers will probably make the team, and like he's a good defensive center fielder, and he's good against left-handed pitching. So I think Friedel and him might platoon a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but I think they think Marte could possibly be the center fielder of the future. Which if he can hit, I think that he could be. It's hard. You don't see a ton of center fielders nowadays that like can play great defense and hit. I think they just like his athleticism. We saw obviously his big arm at times in right field last year. We saw the catch he made against Pittsburgh that basically saved the season.
Yeah, it did.
So I think they just like his athleticism, and it's like spring training's a perfect time to get him live reps. We may as well do it. And I think they're understanding like Friedel's defensive metrics have kind of went down lately, and his speed's dropped as he's getting older. So I think it's a way they can give Friedel some reps in left field as well if they want to like do like some late game switches where they have Dane Myers in center field and Friedel in left. But I like it. I like it, trying it in spring training. But I wouldn't anticipate seeing Marte play a ton of innings in 2026 at center.
Yeah. He impressed me in right field. He learned quickly how to play that position, and I was skeptical when they moved him out there, but I was pleasantly surprised, and you're right. Without that catch above the wall, we don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, that was a special moment. I think it was Brian Reynolds at the plate for the Pirates, and that guy kills the Reds.
Yes, he does.
When he hit that ball, I was on my couch and I was like, "Oh my god, he just hit it out! He just hit it out!" And then, yeah, Marte, that was crazy. That was a
It was
great moment.
So do you see Will Benson or JJ Bleday getting much time?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think one of them will play a decent amount. I don't know. It's really interesting. I think I wrote in one of my articles a week or two ago, like it's going to be interesting if they both make the team to me, because especially now that they just signed Nathaniel Lowe,
Yeah.
because he's another lefty that maybe you could play off the bench. But Bleday and Benson just kind of seem like very similar players, guys that you feel like have a high upside, but they also have struggled here and there. I think Bleday was amazing 2 years ago. I think he hit like 25 home runs, and then last year he really struggled. Benson is so streaky. Sometimes he'll have like a month of May and be like the win National League Player of the Week, and then like he won't get a hit for 2 weeks. So
Right.
they just feel like very similar players. So it's just very interesting, and it doesn't seem like with how Tito plays Benson, it doesn't seem like Tito loves Benson.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just factual or what, but it'll be interesting to see if they both make the roster, because they're both kind of very similar players is how I see them.
Let's move on to the pitching staff. I said last year I did an episode previewing the Reds in the Central, and I said top to bottom, I thought they had the best pitching staff, and I think they do again, even though they lost Nick Martinez, and I hated to see Brent Suter go. What are your thoughts about the pitching staff, starting and relievers?
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think they're absolutely loaded. I mean, I was almost talking myself into, because what you heard when we said you need offense, or like the Reds aren't going to go spend money on free agency. It was like, well, they might have to trade from their pitching depth to go get a bat. And Nick Krall kept coming out and saying, we're not going to do that probably because pitching depth's important. And I know Terry Francona was like, you can't sign big name pitchers to come pitch here, which is also true.
Yeah.
But I think, especially when they did sign Gino, where you're like, okay, well, all they did was they paid $15 million and they kept their pitching staff. They didn't have to trade a guy like Brady Singer, who made like all 32 starts last year.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a guy that's so underrated just because he goes out there and you know what you're getting with him. He's probably not going to go dominate, but he's going to pitch 6 innings and give up 2 or 3 runs and give you a chance to win the game. You got Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, and Andrew Abbott, who on any day could give you 7 innings, 1 run, 7 innings, no runs. And then your 5th starter spot is like, it's between 2 first-round draft picks, essentially. I know they say maybe Brandon Williamson could have a shot too, but I mean, to think that Brandon Williamson is like the 8th guy. Whenever he was called up, I think it was 2023, he was awful in AAA, and the Reds were like, we'll try him because that's how bad the pitching staff was.
Right.
So I'm with you. I think the starting rotation is absolutely loaded, and then I think they did a good job with the bullpen.
Yeah.
I didn't initially love the Pagan signing. I liked that they got Pagan back. I think he was good, but I was like, if you're going to pen, I was like, why are they spending $20 million on a reliever when we haven't got a bat? So, but they ended up getting a bat, so it all worked out. But I think bringing him back, and then you have Santillan back, you have your 8th and 9th inning guys back, and then bringing in, I think the big thing they missed last year was like Sam Moll was with Louisville a lot, and then when he was up, he wasn't great. He was kind of inconsistent. They were using Grant. I joked about this with somebody. They were using Graham Ashcraft as like their left-handed specialist because he had reverse splits. So
Yeah.
which is cool, but like I don't think that's the way to go about like having your only left-handed specialist. So now that they got Brock Burke and the Gavin Lux trade, they got Caleb Ferguson. So they got 2 legit left-handers, and then if it'll be interesting if Mole makes the roster, they could potentially have 3 left-handers down there. They got Pierce Johnson they signed, has been pretty good. I think he could be do the Barlow role last year, but it just seems like the bullpen, same thing. Like they're just very deep. It doesn't feel like there's many guys, like Luis May or Zach Maxwell or Connor Phillips are guys that are be going for spots. It's like there's not many guys in there that you just feel like are going to come in and you go, oh no,
Yeah.
So I think the pitching staff, I think they're loaded. I'm completely with you.
I'm thrilled that they did not trade one of their starters, and it's crazy to think that we've got the potential of having 6, 7, 8 guys that could be in that rotation. From your take, who do you think has the inside track to be that 5th starter? You think it's Chase Burns, or do you think it's Rhett Lauder?
I would guess Burns. That would be I just think his upside is so high. And we saw that at times last year. I mean, I think he was kind of underrated what he did last year. If you take out the Red Sox game where I think everyone said he was tipping his pitches,
Right.
he had an ERA in the 3s, which is pretty incredible for a guy who was drafted the year prior.
That's pretty good anywhere these days.
Yeah, exactly. So and he's only going to get better. I think he's a guy that we could see which this is a crazy comparison, but almost like the Hunter Green track of you remember when Hunter Green first got called up, he was throwing 100, but they were teeing off on him because he couldn't locate or he didn't have the secondary pitches down quite yet. Where then you saw him, kind of learn how to pitch and learn how to go deeper into games. And that was the big thing with Burns last year is his pitch count. It'd be 4 2/3 innings, and his pitch count would be up to 95 or 90, and he's not going to go deep into games. But I think that's kind of a progression you could maybe hope to see. So my guess would be Burns, but also I think we're going to see both those guys at some point this year.
Yeah.
Pitchers always get hurt, so it's pretty amazing that whether it's Burns or Lauder, if a pitcher gets hurt, they're going to be all right, we're going to bring up our 1st-round draft pick from a couple years ago.
Not a bad guy to plug in when someone gets injured.
Yeah, exactly. I just think that's, again, like we said it a million times, but pitching depth's absolutely massive.
Well, hey, Greg, I appreciate your time. Again, for the listeners out there, Greg Kuffner, he writes for Sports Illustrated. He has a podcast called Cincinnati Reds Daily, part of the Queen City Reds. You're out there on about all the social media platforms. That's kind of your specialty, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this has been fun. I appreciate you having me on. I can't wait for the spring training games to get started and we can start nitpicking and, getting excited. And I'm pumped for spring training. That's for sure.
I am too. And I hope maybe sometime in the future you'll be a guest again because it sounds like we have a lot in common and we could probably have some great discussions for the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
All right. Thanks again for joining me.
Yes, sir. Go Reds.